Welcome to today's convening of the Creative Consultants. I'm Trudi, your creative communication consultant.
And I'm Matt, Chief Content Consultant.
And as is custom, we're going to kick things off with an inspirational quote.
Oh, as custom.
I'm excited about this quote.
Please do.
You ready? We like to, yes, for those who are joining us for the first time, we like to muse over a quote, an inspirational quote.
Love musing on a quote.
Yeah, here we go. You ready?
Born ready.
This is by Aparna Nancherla, and I apologise if I say this wrong. This is the first time I've come across this thought leader.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote is, "Fries or salad sums up every adult decision you have to make."
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does.
How does that work for you?
I mean, it's so simple in its positing, yet such a detailed thought process. I naturally go, well, yeah, there's fries and salad. Do you go the healthy option?
Yeah.
Do you treat yourself? What constitutes the need to treat yourself? And then at what stage of your day, week, month, year are you that you would then make that decision?
I feel like it's a little bit like creativity. It seems simple,
Yeah.
but yet there's a lot of depth.
Yeah.
Which brings us to today's topic. I'm in charge today.
You are. You're the boss.
Today's topic is on the agenda. We are considering the following: storytelling.
I love storytelling.
Discuss.
Well, I mean, storytelling is like the oldest form of communication. It's the way our ancestors shared knowledge through story, but it's also one of the coolest things that I think I get to use as part of my job, which is using stories to convey meaning and messages in a way that just surprises and delights people.
It's like your lightsaber, isn't it?
It is like my lightsaber. Yeah. It's a weapon with which I can carve through misinformation. It's like George Lucas pitched Star Wars, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. A weapon to carve through misinformation.
Yeah.
Well, take that, Elon Musk.
I think storytelling, it's ultimately about creating a relationship with the audience and creating, whether it's an avatar of the audience inside that story, or they see themselves in it, or some level of empathy with whatever's going on in the story. So so often classic fables and things like that are about going, setting up a moral or sort of a way of conducting yourself in society, and you're treated to these stories that have the tortoise and the hare and all of these sorts of things. And then as a story, it seems obviously it's about a tortoise and a hare, but no, it's actually about pacing yourself, not going too hard, too fast, overestimating your abilities. All of the messaging inside that story is greater than the story in and of itself. And I think as a tool being used in organizations or in business or in training or however you want to look at it, stories are accessible and relatable. And it means that all of a sudden what could seemingly seem quite dense or really challenging to understand gets presented in a way that's much more digestible. And I think that's the true superpower of stories.
Ironically, it's a little bit like salad or fries, where it seems like a simple question, but yet there is so much more behind it if you dive into it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question then? Do you start in your role and in your organisation, do you start with story? Is that your kickoff point?
Yeah, I think it's always understanding what the outcome of something is, right? And then figuring out what the delivery method of that is best suited to be. And so I think that one of the most common examples of video is a case study or a testimonial, right?
Yeah.
And on the surface, it's kind of having let's use a case study for a customer. The customer story is ideally going to be relatable to other potential customers that they see themselves in that. Now, you could be like, hey, I had this problem and then I was solved by working with X company and amazing. Or you can be like, here's where I'm at. Paint a picture into the story of this individual going, here's where I was in my life. Here's the challenges I was facing. Here's the struggles I was dealing with. Then through this process of engaging or working with somebody, I discovered that this is the way I can get out of this situation. My problems were solved and alleviated. And it's through eliciting story and creating a situation where people go, yeah, I'm in that situation. I see myself in that scenario. It just enlightens something about themselves. Maybe it enriches a pathway they didn't know was available to them, or it maybe sheds some light and makes them feel included and seen as part of, whatever an organization's mission is. It's really relatability is the storytelling genius, where it's like I said before, it takes something that's really potentially quite hard to understand or penetrate and presents it in a way that's accessible and people can understand. There's an in point, it's character, it's story, it's relatable, that all of a sudden you then have access point to something that you might not have otherwise seen.
It's like it's the hook, isn't it, that draws two people together, or that draws, the connections between people.
Absolutely.
I read a thing that was saying that actually cognitively our brains are designed to respond to story. Our brains are designed to sort of hack into a storytelling process, and that every single thing can be related to a story. I know that even for my workshops, and I developed a model of the journey that people go on to become playful and to activate their playful selves. Yeah. And it's a story. It's a story about, creating an awareness and then building it up to a heightened moment and then taking action on that. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Have you ever come across something that you're like, there's no story in this? Yeah,
well, so I'll give you a perfect example, right? So we do a bit of work for Boost Juice.
Yes.
Big national and international smoothie sensation,
we
right?
love them.
Love them. I'd be sipping a Mango Magic right now if I could be. Instead, I'm here talking to you, and I'd much prefer that. But, so they have obviously internal metrics and KPIs and things like they've got usage and recipes that like they need their staff to adhere to. As part of a big initiative in the last 12 months, they had what they called the Boost Olympics, which was sort of setting challenges and goals for teams to compete against each other. Like who can make the fastest protein supreme and who can get 90 grams of yogurt in the perfect scoop and that sort of stuff. And it gamifies what is ostensibly like the SOPs and the rules and the demands of a really busy store. Now, we were tasked with producing a video to kind of create the buzz for the finalists at this event that they were having. And so naturally you kind of go, well, you've just got a bunch of stores that are doing seemingly pretty simple challenges. Like, hey, what's the story there? And the outcome that they wanted to achieve was to have like investment in bettering yourselves and kind of reaching for these ideal scenarios of performance and team culture and all of that sort of stuff. So we made a little doco, and you get insight into the people that are behind the stores and doing these things. What it does as an end result for the audience is they don't just see like, oh, we need to be delivering in 30 seconds this drink and we need to be scooping exactly this amount, but more like the approach and the team and the culture around the way these high-performing stores were operating, that you get investment. You all of a sudden see your own team makeup reflected back at you. Go, yeah, we've been in this business, or we've got these young casuals that come in and like their energy, they come in and bring this new thing. Like story presented such a unique insight into what is really just like these are the ideal deliverables and things we want stores to be able to deliver day in, day out in a way that creates stakes, drama, tension, and conflict, and then a resolution at the end that everybody feels so jazzed about. And everybody walks away going, yeah, we're going to compete. We're going to see who can do the best, 90-gram scoop or something. And they're not thinking about like, oh, we're minimizing wastage in store. They're thinking about like the journey and the competition and the excitement around that. So, even when story is hard to see on the surface, it's not that far away. It's just finding what's going to be relatable to somebody so they engage with whatever the message is that you want to communicate.
And actually, you found the story in the play.
Yeah.
Because essentially, once again, they were doing what we've been talking about, is actually creating a playful way within their process.
Yeah.
So they're not, as you just said, they're not concentrating on the 90 mils, they're concentrating on winning the Olympics.
Yeah.
But in doing so, perfect it whilst telling their story through your video.
And look, not to like peel back the curtain here, but I'm sure you have the same way you talk to your potential clients and people you work with the way we do, in that we don't sell video, we sell the outcome and the problem solution kind of equation. So we don't come in and go, well, you need a video because the video is going to create engagement. It's like your staff are unengaged and you're time poor. You need to have an extension of your team come in and trust somebody to be able to deliver on this. Like it's all of the storytelling of like what's relatable to them. They go, yeah, but this is what we need. And I understand all of this, rather than going, here's what video does for you. It's kind of the storytelling aspect makes it go, yeah, I completely understand the point of this now.
Yeah.
So even in like, children's books, it's that sort of little secret lesson inside the story that's like, animals doing things or whatever. It's like, it's all about creating an environment where the message and the learning comes from a really authentic place that matches up with the delivery method, but also feels like it's going to bring more investment from the people engaging with it.
And it's really the ding, turn the page. Remember?
Yeah.
Ding, turn the page. You
That's
help
it.
people follow along and create that story so that they, ding, turn the page.
Yeah. Yeah. It's even like, surprise and delight, right? Like you can so often think about the cliffhanger at the end of an episode of TV or something. And like TV's gotten so good at it because it's like the cliffhanger is that perfect hook and that intrigue and that I'm invested in seeing what happens next.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of feeling you can create inside an organization. If you use story, you kind of want to see what happens next. And if you've got people like buying in on what it is you're trying to do, where you're trying to move an organization, if you create a situation where they want to turn the page or click on the next episode for whatever it is in their organization, like what a cool thing to do. Because then it's learner-led or individual-led progression. It's not going, you must do this, move on. It's like you've inspired them to want to take action and see what comes next, see what the results are. And I don't think you could do that without story, without inspiring people and presenting something that's really, relatable to them in a human way.
I use it a lot too in the sense of imagination. I'm a big fan of the power of the imagination, which of course we're the only known species to have one. We're the only ones capable of thinking about a lamb chop ice cream and going, oh, no. Which of course that ties into the whole storytelling. Storytelling is a great, once again, bedfellow of imagination.
Yeah.
Do you think you could have a successful organisation without storytelling? Like, do you think it is an essential for every organisation?
Yeah. Done. No, I think
and
about
that's this episode.
I think about all the big organizations that I've either dealt with or know and admire, and I think about even the startups and the small things, and like what's the common denominator between all of them? It's the story behind why it exists is often really, really interesting and unique. And so like for whatever reason, the first one I thought of was Apple, right? And we think a lot about like the development of Apple as a brand, and it's like it was driven by like Steve Jobs in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And his ability to create like just this amazing atmosphere around it. It's like that's the story of what Apple is today. Without that story, Apple's just a massive, tech giant.
Yeah,
and I think about like the small startup that's like, maybe it's a mum returning to work after having children, like, and then wanting to do something and take some control over her own destiny. Like that in itself is a story and a reason why somebody might want to work with them. It's why like, you go to local market stalls and want to support the local farmers and stuff like that because there's a story to where you're involving yourself in that business. That even if we don't engage with it, like you sit there, I want to hear the story now, I will work with this organization. The story about why it exists is a big reason why somebody is there. I think like, founder stories and stories about people that are often held in quite a high regard are often the really amazing humanizing moments for that organization and for the people that work for those things as well, because it's not just like a massive behemoth organization that's sort of just impossible to understand. It's like this started by this one person with a dream and an idea and a hope to change the world or whatever it is. And that ideally carries through to, what the organization does today. So I think without that, you can probably make a business and organization fit a certain market and do something, but I don't think it would have long-lasting effects because you kind of need the story for people to hang on to and want to retain that as a relationship in their lives, I think.
So here's an interesting question. I think it's interesting.
No, I'll believe you.
I don't care if anyone else does, but I want to know. Interestingly, so I work in the sense of play, right? And so one of the things, I've got a game that I have played with people for 20 years and I got really blasé and I was like, I know every outcome, I know every answer, yada, 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 yeah, wow. But actually I thought I'd heard it all. And then one day one guy stood up and he gave me a totally left of centre answer that after 20 years I'd never heard. And I was thrilled, but also a little shocked. And it leads me to this thought of we are given so many stories. We are imprinted with so much stories everywhere we turn, social media, media in general, our lives, everything, story. Do you think we have gotten into a habit and a pattern of thinking we know where a story is going? I immediately turn to like Game of Thrones, the ending of Game of Thrones, where everybody was outraged. Do you think there's a story habit we've landed in? And if so, if you don't give people what they want, is that a good or bad thing?
I think you can have both. I think there is comfort in knowing stories and story tropes and situations where there's a natural progression to a story that there's a lot of comfort in. And I think for the right story, that makes a lot of sense. But also if you can then turn that on its head, surprise somebody or create a situation where you can play against that, all of that understanding that comes with where that story would have gone, and then you take a hard left turn when everybody's expecting to go right, that in itself is the like, oh, there's something interesting and different here. It's why like disruptor brands are a big thing, right? It's like why all of a sudden people that are really polarizing in good and bad ways stand out, because they play against the typical stories and our understanding of what's known. And I think that's where like change happens. That's where challenging routine and the way things have been comes from. But I also think that like stories and the way they're usually going, or the way they typically go, can kind of embed like safety and reliability and reinforce things that maybe people forget about. So you can kind of have a bit of both.
And before we wrap up and I get your key takeaways from this, do you think we have to be careful with our storytelling now?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we're in like a world that's, to get political, but like there's more division than ever. And I think stories are incredibly powerful because people are niched down and in their own little silos of information and content and media and whatever. And then even at an organization, like we're more separate in a lot of ways too. There's more hybrid working, remote working, that like gone are the sort of easy ways of getting everybody on the same page because you're in the same room. And so I think that there's like stories we tell ourselves and can kind of build a bit of momentum in good and bad ways. Stories that we hear from external forces can sort of impact us. And then all of the stories we hear on social media can create a bit of an echo chamber around, good or bad stories as well. So we're in an interesting place where I think stories do have a lot of power. It's kind of the fastest way to connect with somebody and find an in. It is a power that shouldn't be wielded inappropriately. And I think we've seen some shifts to people recognizing the power of storytelling and abusing that in a lot of ways. And so I think as, people, organizations that have sort of the highest ideals and expectations of what they want to achieve as an individual or as an organization, it's a real responsibility to share stories and create stories that are going to benefit those involved.
I guess it's really another notch as to why you need to get people who are masters of storytelling to help you with your product, so you don't trip on this division that's happening at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I know a company actually.
Oh, too. I wonder who that might be. I wonder who. I think, can I just jump in with one last thing?
Go on then, you can quickly.
This little book here, Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss, is my favourite book of all time.
Mine too.
Right? Why is it yours?
Because I love Dr. Seuss.
I do too.
And I love the pattern and the alliteration and the blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So it was written as a challenge. It's only got 50 words used in the whole thing.
Yes.
And a lot of them are repeated, but the same 50 words. But the message, and again, the story behind it is like, you don't know what you're missing out on until you try something. It's like, try something new and explore it. And I think that like storytelling, much like creativity and play, to an organization can feel like, well, this isn't useful. Like, why would I tell stories? I need to tell them, this is what we expect. This is blah, 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 blah. But I think storytelling is the way of getting a really complex message across to somebody in a way that they feel like they're not being, fed medicine. It's like you can engage with it at whatever complexity you want to. You might be like, what a fun, bouncy, rhymey story. I might be like, wow, you know what? He was so stubborn and he was ready to turn his nose up, but he actually loves green eggs and ham. And what an amazing, thing. Maybe I should try some stuff and be open to, experimentation. And I think like as a microcosm of the power of storytelling, I think it's like the perfect example to say stories are powerful and they can really change the world in a lot of ways. And I think that the more storytelling we can embrace as organizations and as individuals, the far better the world will be.
Is that your key takeaway?
I mean, that's it, right?
Brilliant. I didn't even need to ask the question.
I know. I kind of vibed it.
Look at you go. What a storyteller.
What a storyteller.
Oh, so how do we finish this?
I don't know.
Done.